Hi, I'm Erik Gagnon, and this is my '66 Mustang, my anvil. Why did we build the '66 Mustang? For autocross and just general mayhem. I tried autocrossing my '71 Boss Mustang, which is a prized possession I've had for a long time. It's been in my family forever. And as soon as I'd see a green light, it would be followed by a red mist. A bunch of things would happen, and I would come out of it. And it turned out I was an animal. And my wife's like, no, you're done. You cannot autocross that car anymore before you ruin it. We had the good guys, officials asking me how hard it would be to find another car if I was to wreck it on their course. So it was clear to me that I needed a car that I could beat on a little bit and not feel guilty or get a bunch of paint chips. And so, I mean, this is it. This thing is as I found it, from Arlington Valley, Arizona. It'd been sitting since the 80s. The last guy, Will, who owned it, had started stripping it down to paint it when he was in high school, lost interest. The thing sat there till I found it in 2012. As the price of coupes was starting to rise, I started looking for a coupe to build kind of a race car and something to beat on a little bit. And this is the car, almost rust-free example. It's been in the valley the whole time. And the patina is perfect for what I wanted to do. I wanted to create something that looked like a vintage race car that's been reclaimed and put back on the street. And with the help of Joe Solpe, who did all the stencil work and all the artwork, I've had a few folks that asked me where I found a Turlinger race car. So it's convincing. I've had a few people ask me why it wasn't in a museum. How did I get it? I made it to look like a Turlinger car because, I mean, Carroll Shelby is an American icon. He built some great cars. And in the 60s, he bought a ranch in Texas where these guys would just have chili cook-offs, they'd shoot guns, ride dirt bikes, and drink a lot. Well, I guess on one long weekend, these guys got together and they decided they're going to start a race team. So they went through a couple of different characters. I think there was a buzzard at one point that they thought they were going to make. And then this guy drew this on a napkin, this Turlinger rabbit. And it's just this fierce little rabbit ready to face the world. And then they made up a bunch of these stickers, and they'd go down the pit road, and all these little Mustangs they weren't even associated with, they'd slap these stickers on the fenders of these cars. So, and I just decided that I always admired Carroll Shelby, so we're going to make a tribute to him. Initially, we were going to call it the Chicken Coop because he was a chicken farmer, and this is a coupe. So, but it was too hard to explain to everybody that Carroll Shelby was a chicken farmer. So, when it came time to get a license plate, I went with my anvil because I'm going to beat the hell out of this car. But as far as the number 17, I think they had some Turlinger cars that were 17, but I've always run the number 17 on my dirt bikes. When I was a little bit younger, I'd ride motocross, and for some reason, I just liked the number. And incidentally, it was also my oldest daughter's initials. So A and G, 1-7. So it just made sense to put a 17 on the car. Some of the cooler things we did was one day I was mocking up the hood or the grill, and I'm putting the grill emblem together, and I'm just kind of getting the corral together, and it just dawned on me. I was like, I want to put a Turlinger rabbit in the grill. So Will over at EME Fabrication, he's got a plasma table, and the guy's smart. He just figures things out. So Will Amy, I asked him, I said, can you do this in steel and then powder coat it and put it in it? And he goes, yeah, no problem. So like a week later, I gave him the corral, and he cut out this little rabbit. It's perfect. And he welded the tabs, and it fits right where the horse was. And honestly, that's the only thing I've ever gotten any grief for online was, how could you take the horse out of the corral? I had two guys that were just beside themselves over that. But I think it's one of the coolest things. And additionally, to kind of go period correct, I went with a reproduction of a Cobra, the Cobra race car, AC Cobra mirror. And then we powder coated the ring, that was Will as well, the same competition yellow as the brakes. It's a nice accent, and it just looks cool. And it looks like something somebody would grab off the shelf setting up a race car in the 60s. So, it turned out good. I'm very happy with it. Some of the other things is, we went and found some reproduction stickers that were period correct. And it's mixed in with, like the Autometer in Canton, that's newer. And of course, you got to represent Bear brakes because those things are awesome. I mean, you can make a car go fast, but you better make it stop too. So. Essentially, the car is a collection of parts that I had been gathering over the years for my wife's 65 Fastback. We had gotten to the point on her car where the metal work was turning into, I mean, the thing was just coming out amazing that I couldn't really justify doing a leaf spring car anymore. So we had this one anyway, so we took all the parts from hers, you know, things like Global West springs, Global West strut rods, Control Freak upper and lower control arms, grab-a-trak suspension like the leaf springs in the rear. And then I wound up picking up a set of Viking dual adjustables through Rodney Prouty. You know, I asked him what he would run on something like this, so he suggested Viking. And, you know, we're still working on it. We're trying to get it to handle a little bit better. Chris Hall's been helping me out a lot. We just managed to get the thing aligned over a day and a half. And I think we got 10.5 caster, positive caster, and then 2 degrees negative camber. And it's driving a lot better. Just today is the first time I've been able to take it out, and it's been handling a lot better in its centers. But it's just a fun little car. All right, rear suspension consists of grab-a-trak leaf springs. It's a 5-leaf mid-eye, and then I had them de-arched at Dunbar Springs to get this stance. I wanted it lower. I de-arched it once, it wasn't low enough. I brought them back down there, they did it again, and I finally got it to sit where I wanted it to. And then I had a grab-a-trak sway bar and the Viking dual adjustable shocks, and man, the thing was rubbing. The wheel arch is something awful through the corners. The first weekend at the Good Guys event, the rubbing was making more noises than the engine. So what I've done to fix that is I put a Mike Meyer ink Panhard bar, and that centers the rear end and it keeps it right where it needs to be, and it's been working fantastic. I'm very impressed with that company. The support I've gotten from him, I've asked him how to set up the front end, and I didn't buy anything from him for the front end, but he still took the time. And the Panhard bar is top notch, it's easy to install, and the thing's fantastic. So very happy with that product. Happy with the Viking shocks. And, I mean, we're getting it. It's starting to work good. It'll never win a competition, but I'm just out there to have fun. Initially when I got the car, it was 4-wheel drum brakes. I believe it was power brakes, but still that wasn't going to cut it for what we were going to do. So when it comes to brakes, no other brand will do. I always run bare brakes. We've got a 6-piston front brake with a 13-inch rotor, a 4-piston rear with a 12-inch rotor, and the bare remaster under the hood. And the color is competition yellow. I liked it because it was a nice, vibrant color. It was in your face, and it sort of looks like the lettering for the Terlinger, but before it faded. So super happy with the color. It was kind of a bold choice, but I'm glad I did it. And we also used the same color for the Terlinger Rabbit in the corral and the beauty ring on the mirror. It's a nice accent color, you know, against the dreary paint and finish. All right, so these early gen Mustangs, or actually all Mustangs, are unibody, so they're kind of flimsy, and they kind of flop around a little bit. So to stiffen it up, we use the DSE torque boxes and subframe connectors, and you can put a jack under the front frame of this car and lift the back tire up. It is very stiff, so it tied it together beautifully. It's a nice product, and I would highly encourage everyone to use those. All right, for wheels, we went with Budnik GTX Fat Lip. 17.7 front, 18.8 rear. Front's running a 225 45 17. The rear's a 245 40 18, and we're using the Falcon Azenas. Decent tire for the money, good grip. Yeah, so far they've been working real well with the car. Okay, the engine is a roller block 347 stroker with the Professional Products heads, full valve job. It's all roller stuff, so roller cam. It's got a Sniper EFI on top of a Super Victor Jr. intake, and as tall as that intake is, I'm surprised it fit under the stock hood, but real happy with that. And it's been a great motor, good torque, good power, RPM. It winds up really fast. We figured that out today. So it's a good time. We're still sorting it out, but as far as it running and driving, the Sniper is a great system. It's the second one we put in, and real happy with that. Self-tuning, it's just a really smart carburetor. Because, you know, pulling jets and pulling carburetors apart and trying to figure out what things going on, this is much easier. It also offers a secondary instrumentation to see how the engine's doing, if it's overheating or anything of that nature. But so far, I'm sold. I'm going EFI all the way from now on.
Give it some revs.
All right, transmission is a Tremec T5 with a modern driveline shifter, because a lot of the T5s, it's like mixing paint. They're real sloppy, but that modern driveline shifter is awesome. It's real tight. It didn't help me catch third today, but that's my fault. It has a hydraulic throw-up bearing for modern driveline as well, with a Tilton, the Tilton bearing with the modern driveline master cylinder. And then the back of that still has the 8-inch. I'm not going to be running slicks and going drag racing, so the 8-inch is more than strong enough. It's got a 350 gear set with an Eaton True Track, and so far, man, everything's working really well. So it's well sorted out, and it's a lot of fun. All right, the interior, and originally the car was a bench seat car. It's an unusual option. I don't even know if I've seen one before, but I always like bench seats. My Fairlane has a bench seat. If I ever build a truck, it's going to have a bench seat. So I decided I'm going to keep it. But because the car was going to be utilized for autocross, I knew I had to do something to kind of keep you in the driving position and not sliding around. So I went to Glenn Kramer of Hot Rod Interiors by Glenn and talked to him about building this really specific and cool bench seat. And he goes, yeah, piece of cake. So he suggested we buy all the seat foam from TMI for their racy bucket seat for the Mustang. So I bought the foams, and I bought the covers for the rear seat. They're just the standard cover for that car. And I bought extra material, yards of material, to build the front seat. And Glenn matched the front seat to the rear cover, with the exception it's got all these bolsters and these things to keep me held in. And he still had the center, the armrest still works. It still lifts up, goes down, even with all the bolsters. And it's a really nice piece. I mean, it's way nicer than the paint justifies. But Glenn was a huge help, and he was very fair with his price, and the product is amazing. I'm very happy with the seat. You know, as we're building the car, I just keep having these weird ideas. I'm like, this thing needs a roll bar, which, I mean, none of my cars have ever had a roll bar. We've never built a roll bar. We've never installed a roll bar. But it had to happen, you know. So I wanted a roll bar. So we started thinking about how we could mock one up and then bring it to a fab shop to have them bend the steel. And I came up with the idea because we had just built the shop not too far back. We had electrical conduit, and we've got benders. So Chris and I bent up an electrical conduit to the shape of the roll bar that I wanted. And then I brought it to Twisted Alloy in Buckeye, and the owner was great. He's like, all right, you know, are we talking outside diameter? Am I following this? And I'm like, yeah, this is the outside diameter. You know, so he did it in 1 3/4 seamless. And then he had these couplers you weld in. You know, you cope the pipe, and then you weld these things, and we were able to do the bars that go to the back end of the trunk. So we were able to install a harness bar, essentially. It's not really a roll bar. I'm not putting this thing on the roof. I wouldn't trust it. But as far as a harness bar to put my, Crow Enterprises 4 or 5-point harnesses, it's great, and it looks the part. And there's nothing better than, somebody in a Buick LeSabre looking over and seeing you fully strapped in at the light. Because I've had some people like, what is he about to do? But you never know. The gauges are autometer. They're pretty standard, but they work well. And then it's like a JME bezel. It's a billet bezel. But I wanted the car to have kind of a factory feel inside. But it's all painted up, and all the materials are new. The headliner's new. It just looks great. The car's got this patinaed, ratty look, but you get in the car, and it's a restored automobile. It drives well. It looks good. It looks and drives. Well, it doesn't look great, but that's kind of the purpose. So, initially, the idea for the steering is I don't want to deal with power steering. I hate leaks. I don't want to deal with routing the lines. It was very difficult. So I had the brilliant idea. I'm going to run a 16-to-1 box without the assist, the ram. They had like a ram that would assist and run off a pump. So I'm like, no. I can drive the car with a 16-to-1 box manual with the extra long Shelby mod arms, so that you get a quicker steering ratio. The thing was awful. It handled like a shopping cart. It was the hardest thing in the world to park. you couldn't drive it. It was terrible. And we did that through the autocross, which I was sweating. It was a lot of work. So one idea to fix it was this E-Pass electric power steering that I'd seen the year before. It was a really cool system. They're not cheap, but they're unique. They put an electric motor under the dash, and then as you turn the wheel, it senses which direction you're going, and it assists in turning in that direction, left to right. The thing works great. You don't hear anything. It's awesome. And all the new modern cars have electric steering, and there's no hydraulic fluid, no lines. And so far, I'm super happy with it. Despite, it is a little expensive, but I don't regret getting it. So now it's got. All right, the headlights are Dapper OEM 7s, I believe they're called. They're as bright as any modern car. I mean, they're fantastic because a lot of these old cars didn't have great headlights. For taillights, we used a digi-tail LED sequential taillights. Just little things here and there to kind of make it a little safer. I mean, you do need a tetanus shot after you've been around it, but other than that, it's fairly safe. The radiator is a Ron Davis Racing Products. These cars are notorious for overheating, especially here in Phoenix, 100 degrees plus. We had the car out today. We were beating on it a little bit. It was 100 degrees, and the car never overheated. And these things are notorious for overheating. So it's a Ron Davis radiator with dual spall fans. It's been Cerakoted by John Sykes, which is a nice coating. It's a gun coating, but it's been holding up really well, and it's got a good look. All the powder coating, other than that, for like the strut braces and the grill emblem, the mirror, that's all done by EME Fabrication. The roll bar was bent up by Twisted Alloy in Buckeye, Arizona. I've had a lot of help, but especially Chris Hall has allowed this to happen. This car would still be in pieces if it were for me, or for Chris. Yeah, we went from rolling shell, well, not even rolling shell, complete shell on casters to an operating vehicle within 6 months. I mean, that was a Herculean effort. We've mastered taking the transmission out of this car. We've had it in and out of the car 7 times. Mostly because of things I've done wrong, but it is what it is. We figured it out. But every time I would be done. I'd be losing my mind. Chris would be like, all right, we got it. But my job is to panic, lose things, and freak out. And Chris handles everything else. But he wired the car. I mean, he's been there every step of the way. Between Chris and my wife, I mean, this car just wouldn't have come together near as well or as fast as it did without the help of those guys. I mean, Mike DeLay and Michael DeLay had hands on it. I mean, we've had a lot of people help me out. And I don't deserve all the help I get, but I do appreciate it. So I especially like to thank my wife and Chris Hall for making this possible.